Hi, I'm Deborah Dahab, expat coach and intercultural psychologist. Today, I'm going to talk about expat failure, what it means in the corporate setting, some ideas on how to deal with these issues, and how to avoid them. If you like this video, please subscribe and comment. I would love to read your comments. So let's get to it. Expat failure. In a corporate setting, usually what happens is that an employee is invited to go to an international assignment for a certain amount of time, possibly 1 to 2 years or maybe more. Usually it's not less than a year because it's usually not economically viable to send someone and their family to spend a small amount of time. Although there are nowadays multiple ways of doing, flexible work in terms of sending for a couple of months and then going back. There are many different ways to do this nowadays. However, let's focus on the more traditional approach, which is sending someone, an employee, to a new country, to a different country for a certain amount of time, let's say 2 to 3 years. This person, if they have a family, wife, husband, and kids, they will probably bring them with them. So what is considered in the corporate setting an expat failure? A failure is considered when the expat and or their family returns before that due date, the date where the assignment is supposed to end. So that's what's considered failure. And some statistics point to the fact that up to 40% of the total of international assignments fail. So and when I saw that, I was like amazed because that's really high. I mean, up to 40% blatantly fail. People go back before they stay to the time they committed to. And another statistic that I found, and I'll put the links of the sources on the description, is that every failure, so every time an employee goes back before the time that they were supposed to stay in the country, it costs to the company around $330,000 US per employee. So imagine you have 10 employees that fail. That's almost 3 million. So that data also really surprised me because that's a lot of money. And I'm not even talking about the human factor, right? The human cost of emotional distress and even logistically, with children in schools and stuff. I'm just talking about the round number that I found. That really surprised me. And so I decided to understand what happens there. And I did some research. And there are two main reasons. The first one is regarding the family and, spouse or kids. And the other one is regarding the employee, him or herself. So the first, regarding the family, about 70% of the people who do international assignments in a corporate setting will have family accompanying them. So that's a large amount. So you're talking about the executive plus the family and their adjustment, right? That's quite complex. Then the second group I was talking about previously is the executive. So he or she has some challenges in adjusting to the new culture, plus a lot of pressure to deliver results. So let's look at the family first, and then we'll look at the executive second. The family many times is comprised of children of various ages and a spouse who could be a man or a woman. Today, usually it's the wife who accompanies the husband. This might change hopefully in the future, but today that's still more frequent. And this wife many times had to leave a career behind. many times had to leave a support system behind, many times had to leave, childcare available behind. So for this wife, and I'm going to say wife because it's the most common situation, the adjustment is a lot more complex in terms of the multiple new contacts that she's going to have when compared to the executive. The executive is going more or less to the same company and has different challenges, but it's not as complex in the sense of there's so many moving parts. So for this accompanying partner, everything logistic is on her hand. Getting the house ready. This is what I'm telling you is usually what happens. Might not be every single case, but usually this is what happens. So the wife has to get the children in a school and cater to their adjustment mostly. Then deal with the practicalities of everyday life. Like getting a house organized with everything that entails, moving, etc., and her own well-being, which should not be left to last. The executive might have a harder time in the sense that the adjustment in the company, even though it's the same company, culturally speaking, there will be a lot of differences in how to communicate, how effective. The project might be especially challenging. And it's very common in both cases for the family and for the executive to have very difficult time adjusting to the new culture. So that is one of the top reasons for expat failure, for going back earlier, is that people just say, you know what, I can't adjust. How to avoid that? How to avoid the loss of $330,000 per employee that goes back? Here are some ideas. Well, what usually the companies do is cultural training, which is great and is really important. And it will give you kind of the do's and don'ts in a culture, what to do in a certain situation, what not to do in a certain situation. And this is great and super important and works on a cognitive level of information. However, another part which is super important, and I don't see many companies doing this, is regarding the emotional preparation. So understanding the emotions that you will go through in the cultural transition and how to deal with them, how to identify these emotions and how to deal with these emotions. And when I'm talking about how to deal with them and identify them, I'm talking about everyone in the family. I'm talking about the executive, I'm talking about the accompanying spouse and the children. Because when the executive comes home and his family is unhappy, well, it's likely that he's going to be unhappy too, right? So it's very important to prepare emotionally. How do you do that? Well, I do this for a living. I help people prepare emotionally. And also you can use some free resources like these videos. There are many books, expat books, that will help you preparing. And you can also help prepare with other expats. So what commonly happens is that expats end up creating a sort of community, and you can help them. You can get help from them, and when you're a newcomer in this society, in the new culture. Many international schools have this environment, and that can help a lot. And one of the most important things that I think is to make any kind of transition successful, and this one especially, is understanding that, there are going to be hard times, but you have the resources to overcome them. And if you don't find the resources immediately, it's very easy nowadays to get help, to get information and to get help regarding cultural adjustment. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.